Hello, I'm Mark Hall-Patton. I want to welcome you to the Clark County Museum. Now, when you come out to the museum, it often looks like it's the same all the way around throughout the year, from year to year. But the only way that it can be kept looking the same is if we maintain the museum. And that's one of the things that we do here, but we do it in different ways. Now, for Heritage Street here behind me, we paint the houses every 5 to 10 years. Sometimes we have to re-roof, repair air conditioners, that sort of thing. That's all part of running the museum, making sure that the museum is here for today and tomorrow. But we have one area of the museum, one group of buildings that we actually allow to basically begin to fall apart during the year and rebuild every January. So let's take a look at those and talk about why we would let them fall apart as part of the interpretation here at the museum. Here on the County Museum grounds, we have 3 reconstructed Paiute Wikiups. But if you look, they look a little ragged at this point. By the end of the year, the materials are beginning to slough off. You can see holes through the sides. They're looking a little worn. And we do that on purpose. The way the Paiute lived, they were nomadic. So they would come down out of the mountains, they would live on the valley floor. They would normally build their wikiups near water sources, and then they would move back out of them. The idea behind the wikiup is it was a short-term shelter. It was not a permanent home. There were various types. We have the smaller type. We have a type over here that was done mainly for shade. This one, you see how low it is. The whole idea was you could lay here and be out of the wind or out of the heat during when it would get warm. But things like that, the idea was these were then allowed to fall apart. And when they would come back, they would build new ones. So here at the museum, part of what we do is over the course of a year, the wikiups begin to fall apart. They do what they're meant to do, and they are part of the interpretation of how the Paiutes actually lived with the land here. The interesting thing is the Paiutes were a lot smarter than we were. When it's in the middle of summer and it's 120 degrees outside, they weren't here on the valley floor. They were up in the mountains where it's much more comfortable. So their homes, they would allow to go back into nature, go back into the dirt, and then they would build a new one. In order to build one, there were different sizes and different ways. This one, for example, is a much more substantial one. This one was made for a single family to live in. You can see it's beginning to collapse here. All the material that you see here, the mesquite posts, the desert broom, this is all material from the museum grounds. It's rebuilt out of natural materials that grow right here on the museum. So we have a chance to hopefully help people understand how the Paiutes actually worked with the land and learned how to live here. This is very different than what we think of when people ask about Paiute houses. A Paiute home in historic times and prehistoric times was not like what we think of. And so we want people to be able to understand that. They were the first people to use this land, and they are still here. They are still part of our community, and these are part of their history. So when you come out to the museum, you can learn a little bit, depending on what time of the year, a little bit more about all the things that are going on in our history here. For us, history is a continuing story, one that we want to continue to make available to everyone. Now remember, we're open 7 days a week, 9 to 4:30, and we're only $2 a head, so we are the last bargain in the Vegas Valley. So come on out and join us, and if it happens to be in December, you can also enjoy the Christmas lights and the Christmas decorations. So, Merry Christmas.